Hello, everyone. Hi. So, I hope you can hear me well, and I can't hear myself yet because I don't have the headphones, but you do. So, welcome to Change Now, and welcome to our session today, Water Equity, Empowering Women and Sustaining Communities. My name is Deepa Paron, a tongue twister, but Deepa Paron. I'm an independent journalist. I cover human rights with a strong focus on women's rights for The Guardian and for La Vanguardia. And today, before we begin, I wanted to scare you a bit, but I think you already know some statistics from United Nations, which is the demand for water has outpaced population growth, and half of the world's population is already experiencing severe water scarcity for at least 1 month each year. And water scarcity is projected to increase with the rise in global temperatures as a result of climate change. And in 2022, 2.2 billion people still lacked safely managed drinking water, and 3.5 billion people lacked safely managed sanitation. Women and girls are always facing the brunt of this crisis, and they're walking an average of 6 kilometers per day just to collect water in many regions across the world. That's time lost from education, income, and guess what? Leadership. And it also leaves them vulnerable to sexual and gender-based violence in many regions across the world. So yes, I know that was scary, but on a lighter note, has anyone here watched a Bollywood movie called Toilet Ek Prem Katha? Well, 3 of you, 2 of them my panelists. So this movie was a love story, and the title Toilet kind of started conversations that people were not having in India. And that was about women's access to clean sanitation. It was about this man who, his wife had left him because there was no toilet. And to win her back, he built a toilet, and she did come back. So I don't know how well it did at the box office, and it did not matter, because what mattered was when I was talking to one of our panelists today, Reto, the CEO of Toilets for All, he mentioned this movie, and it took me aback. I was like, wow, a lot of people in my family hadn't watched that movie. So I said, you know what? The conversation has begun. I mean, Bollywood can do it. Why can't we, right? So I know everything looks gloomy. The Change Now team were telling me, you know what, Deepa, the topic is very scary, but try to make it light. But I guess the truth is that time is running out, and there's no time really to take it for granted. And with that, I go on to introducing our first speaker. That's Adenike Oladosu, and she'll join me as a Nigerian ecofeminist, climate justice leader, and a champion of women's rights. And she's the founder of iClimate Action Initiative that advocates for the restoration of Lake Chad. So please join me in welcoming Adenike to the stage with a big round of applause. All yours, Adenike.
So I want to thank you all. Just as the moderator have introduced me, I am Oladosu Adenike from Nigeria and the founder of iLead Climate Action Initiative. And today my role is kind of simple because what we do at iLead Climate Action is to empower women. We know women are change makers, but then we are also trying to provide women with the necessary resources. So the fight for safe drinking water is a fight for human rights. Our health depends on safe water. However, on the continent in Africa, there are about 118 million people that lack access to even basic drinking water. Another 772 million people lack sanitation services. And 839 million people still lack basic hygiene services. However, achieving SDG, Africa requires 12-fold increase in current rate of progress on safely managed drinking water, and another additional 42-fold of increase for basic hygiene services. In rural areas, 4 out of 5 people lack safely managed drinking water. 3 out of 4 people lack safely managed sanitation, and 7 out of 10 lack basic hygiene services. And lack of access to water, basic hygiene, and sanitation is a defining issue for women's rights. This is because 80% of households depend on women on the collection of water. This often means traveling long distances and carrying heavy loads on the head, and in some cases, with a high risk of violence, lower income, and an increase in the dropout of girls from schools. And this strategy of collection of water is a weapon against our fundamental human rights. And as a founder of our Elite Climate Action Initiative, one of our initiatives is to provide women with the resources to close the gender inequality. And one of those things that we do is to support women with organic fertilizer and indigenous seedlings. And why are we doing this? Is to bridge that gap. Because in my community, where I am based, women lack access to own a land. And lack of access to own a land means you can't have access to agricultural facilities, like the organic fertilizer that we offer to them. And so this was a means for us to drive changes that women need to be empowered. And so far, we have reached out to 100,000 women in 5 communities. And at the same time, in September 2024, which was last year, in Chechei village, we had the ZDF media, a German-based media, that came to our feed to film our work. And it's now available on their website. And one of those things is the fact that we see women struggling, walking several distances, averagely of 6 hours in a day to search for water. And the drive for water scarcity affects access to basic hygiene for women. And in a report, it mentioned that in sub-Saharan Africa, women spend 45 billion hours in a year to search for water. That is almost the working hours for people in America that women in sub-Saharan Africa waste daily basis, walking several distances. And another figure by UN Women mentioned the fact that women spend 200 million hours daily globally to search for water. So water scarcity is a weapon against women's rights, and as well, it affects access to basic hygiene system for women. And why am I mentioning this figure? Is because it's a reality check. It's a reality for people in my community. So those figures are the reality checkpoint for us to know that we need to act on those reality, and climate crisis exacerbates those crises. So at the same time, a report also mentioned the fact that for us to achieve or to strive to achieve gender equality, it might take us 100 years, which means that it might make it difficult for us to achieve climate justice. Because the fight for gender equality is a fight for climate justice. So today, I want us to act on those reality that exacerbates the crisis of WASH, and to also keep everyone safe. Likewise, we cannot solve the climate crisis without women and girls. And this is why my presentation today talks about my role as the founder of Elite Climate Action. And one of those roles is to create a safe space for women and girls. And so this is us going to community, empowering women to see how we could become change makers. And one of those new innovations that we are trying to do is to use the GIS, a remote sensing technology, to help women to find water where there are water scarcity. So that way, we cut down the number of hours women search for water, and at the same time, we make women to be able to have availability of water. So those are the new technology we are bringing on board. And at the same time, these are the problems that we are also trying to solve. To see how we could have 80% of women participate in agricultural services. And at the same time, in sub-Saharan Africa, we have different indications that talks about that. And one of my work also is on Lake Chad. So Lake Chad is a lake in Africa that borders Nigeria, Niger, Chad, and Cameroon. And Lake Chad has shrunk by 90%. And those people that are affected, 80% of them are women and girls. So imagine that we don't have access to water. So what will be our fate for us to have access to basic hygiene systems? So these are the questions that I want us to ponder upon. And I know the next panel have a lot of solutions and initiatives that they are also trying to do to bridge the gap. So at the same time, these are the strategies I've mentioned that we are trying to do to bridge those gaps. Using data and research. So as a researcher, I'm also doing an activities currently talking about the climate crisis in the Lake Chad, using the GIS as well, to see how we could be able to bring back this lake. Because once the lake dries out, then it becomes a very big issue. The lake was twice the size of Frankfurt, if you have been to Frankfurt before. But now it's just a tiny portion of what it once was. So restoring this lake is like giving availability or access to water for women, which are millions, of which we have millions of women out there that lack basic access to these water facilities. And this is also our vision and mission, to see how we could reach out to as many women as possible in different communities, and to keep expanding our strategy across all sectors. So as a founder of I Lead Climate, I'm also urging us all to also become solution makers, that we can do it. Everybody can become the solutions that we need in our community or in our society. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Adenike. Thank you so much for joining us today.